Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. We are here very excitingly for another roundtable. This time it is a Winners of Liftoff Sessions edition. Yes. So we've got 3 films that were a winner of one of the monthly editions of our Liftoff Sessions 2019 or 2020. And we're really looking forward to speaking to, we've got 3 great films.
We do.
5 filmmakers, which is really nice. So we're going to be hearing from 2 different sets of people for 2 of the films. And I think we should just get started and have them introduce themselves.
This is just a reminder, I am here in the chat room, so if anyone does have any questions for our filmmakers, I will pass them on. No problem. So do fire away.
Yeah. Any questions for any of your filmmakers or any that you want to ask, all of them.
Yeah. Or if you have any questions for Liftoff, we're also here to to answer any questions you may have. Rupert is also here. He's fast asleep on Claire's lap. So if you do hear any growling, it is not Claire getting angry at one of us.
Or really hungry.
It's Rupert on her lap.
So hi, everybody. If you just unmute yourselves now. And starting with Tony, can you introduce yourselves for everybody, the role of your project and your project?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Jopia. This is the Legend of Leatherface, which is a slightly quirky Western. Nice. I directed and co-produced the film.
Amazing, thank you. Rowan?
Oh.
Hello, I'm Rowan. I was the co-director and co-writer of Lou. Tom?
Yep, my name is Tom Dooner, and I am the other co-writer and the producer of Lou.
Amazing. And Camilla?
Hi, I'm Camilla. I'm the director of Rise Black Ocean.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Bernadine. I'm the producer of Rise Black Ocean. Great to be here.
Amazing. So we've got Camilla and Bernadine in Johannesburg.
And
then we've got the rest of us from the UK. So that's really cool as well.
Yeah, it's always nice to speak to filmmakers from a different region or a different country in total.
Yeah, this has been one of the benefits, actually, of sort of having to branch out in these bizarre times, being able to do more international events, which is really, really nice. Well, I think then we should get started, and we're going to kick off with Legend of Leatherface. So let's get that up, Tony, and start hearing from you. So, I mean, start by telling us where the inspiration for this quirky film came from.
Well, the sort of foundations to it came from I was directing various kind of sports related commercials and promotions for a network who were trying to bring together this particular sort of selection of Western films. And so there was a number of these commercials and promos created, and one particular time we were trying to think of something to do with the World Cup. And so it was a season of Westerns that were going to play over a World Cup event. And we were trying to bring the 2 together to appeal to a football fan and a Western fan. And so, and during the thinking process and being a Western fan, of course, I came up with this idea for what obviously at the time was not the purpose of what I had to do. So I put it to one side, and I'm a big fan of Sergio Leone. So I hit on this idea that in sports, it's always nice to push or promote the underdog. And it's a nice little sort of ingredient to draw attention and engage with audiences. So I worked on that idea that what if the hero, rather than having a person to being the hero or the underdog, what if it was something completely off the wall? And obviously, because I'd been thinking of the sports related creative, I just obviously hit on the ball. And obviously a ball having the character and the rusticness about it, you know, being a leather old football. It just seemed to, it gave me the challenge of trying to create a caricature in a way that you would perhaps with an animation. Yeah. So, that was the basic premise of how we came with an idea and brought it to life.
Amazing.
I mean, we can see it here as you're talking. And I'm just in awe of the cinematography and the grade that you've put on this. Mm-hmm. What did you shoot on?
It was shot on a red.
Okay.
Can't remember which one of the Reds we actually shot on, but we teamed up with a company called the Film and TV Company at the time. They were doing a lot of stuff for us, and so because we shot a number of different times at this town, and would you believe it? It's in Kent, this western town, and so we got to know them very very well, and they're a fantastic bunch of people, and you have to show a lot of respect because for them this is not just a hobby. They really do go to great detail in for example, you go to the storehouse and there a tin of baked beans would be, looking exactly as a tin of baked beans would do in 1875.
Wow.
But it's perfect. So we knew the location really well, and when we were shooting certain things, we try and get little cutaway shots just to pile up for the rainy day when we could actually finish the whole thing. And it took a while to do, but when we were ready, we went back and we filmed the elements that we needed for it to create this little short, and it all fell together. I mean, the beauty, of course, of filmmaking is quite often is that you are allowed to, you do your storyboards, you have your script, so you can create the idea and the structure of it all in advance. And the more prepared you are, the better the results usually turn out. And for this, it was very much handled like that. And it all fell into place because, I mean, we didn't have to do much dressing for the set. I mean, really, to be honest, I mean, all we had to do was figure out how we were going to move the ball without showing it, which we did do. And it was quite an interesting way, the way we actually brought the ball to life.
So you mentioned that this location is a permanent location in Kent. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
That's amazing.
I
wonder who else
it's basically built by enthusiasts who are into the Western scene. And they have a big plot of land which they all tend to rent out a small section themselves, and then they have to follow very strict authenticity rules, on creating anything that they're going to add to the town.
I mean,
and
that's
then
ideal
the rest
because
is
it's
what it is.
difficult to be fully cohesive with something like this. And we've spoken about it with some of our judging members and jury panels before, how small details can really take you out of something and can be really jarring. So it's such a shame. I mean, one of the ones we always speak about is things like double glazing.
I knew you were going to say double glazing.
Yeah, double glazing in like period pieces and just tiny things. But it's such a shame. Whereas that, of course, is the beauty of this, I suppose. Like, it's so perfect.
Yeah.
Which also, of course, adds really high production value.
Well, of course. I mean, you would have to probably go to. I mean, we're working on a feature film at the end of the month, which is going to be a Western, and that potentially could be shot in Spain, depending on this COVID thing. If not, we'll be hopefully back at Laredo. But the thing is that it's those little bits of details that you can put into it. I mean, there's things from, the little fly that sits on the deck of the house of cards and so on. But when you work with a bunch of creatives, they all contribute. Everybody throws and has some ideas, and that all comes from filming on the day. But being in that environment, you can throw so much more into it because you don't have to worry so much about the production design. So you can actually let your imagination go. And obviously, with the idea of creating as authentic as possible scenario. And look, you always look for little things that just make, add that little bit of extra je ne sais quoi about it, the icing on the cake.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long was the shoot? How many days did it take to shoot?
That took just about an afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah, we shot it all in a day, really, to be fair. It was one of the things that I come from a background of shooting a lot of promos, trailers and so on. And you don't have the same budget as you would if I was shooting a commercial. So you often have to be super well prepared. And as long as you are prepared, and you get into the routine of shooting fast and everyone being briefed, you can achieve a lot, actually. I don't wish to sound like, it's super easy. It's always hard work. But this was literally shot in a day from the point of arriving, setting up, rigging and shooting and going home.
Wow.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it's being really organised and also being ruthless with moving on, like having an AD that feels willing enough to go, no, we're not doing that again. We're moving on. Because it's so easy to quickly fall behind schedule, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I feel comfortable enough to go into a shoot, I'd like to think that I know, as long as I edit in my head often, so I know the shots that I need. And if they're not storyboarded, I have a good idea, or there's a team has been quite well briefed. But I mean, I work with a team that I've worked with many times. So we all understand our zone, you know. So when we need to get into them, we know what to do and achieve with them. But I mean, I've got my brother Stuart and my son Alex. We all work in the team. In fact, James, who was with you, who also had a winning film, he was also working on this production as an assistant director as well. So the team that you build, you know, is everything in many cases, because they are the ones who have to realize your vision. And if you only have a day to achieve that vision, if they know and have the faith in you as a director, then you can achieve many great things.
Yeah. Let's talk about costumes, because they're also very, very cool. Did they come with the lot, or did you source them yourself?
A bit of both.
Bit of both?
A bit of both, because the place Laredo is a work. I mean, they when they're there, they dress and they eat and they breathe and they do everything that a Western cowboy, male or female, would do. So from a point of view, and it's a lovely opportunity for them to get involved as well. I mean, they were super generous. So a lot of those extras were people who are there at the base as well. So, you know, from costumes, but obviously we brought in costumes as well. So, you know, we had a wardrobe person, and it's, you know, part of the whole process. Everything. The thing is, so much was available at the location. There was, you know, from people to what they wear to the weapons, even to the animals, the horses and so on. And it was an absolute amazing experience to be there. I mean, we've done lots of things there, but this was particularly good fun. Yeah, and it was actually really, really entertaining to watch, probably, when we were filming it, because we had to devise which was like a tuning fork where you have to push the ball along, and the camera would be just above it, so that you only saw the top of the ball moving along. And that's how, and we used a couple of other animation sort of techniques of moving the ball and then doing locked off shots and painting out the hand that moves the ball. So lots of different ways to bring that to life. But I mean, we would have looked really silly pushing this thing with a little wire thing. But and you know, everything from the horses pulling the ball. I mean, there were just little sort of images that have always stuck in my head from a child, of things that I remember from Westerns.
Yeah. So you mentioned there that you used a lot of people that are, let's say, residents of this place. What about the main actor, the guy with the long white hair?
Yeah, John Camping. He obviously had been brought in to work on on the promo, but he is fantastic. He's actually done a lot of work, some low budget movies as well as other stuff, and he's actually a really, really fantastic guy. I've not worked with him actually since then, but would like to again. But he had the look, you know, he had the look of the nemesis. We wanted, you know, if you remember, I don't know if you know your Westerns, but there's great Lee Van Cleef, who, you know, dressed in black. So we were using sort of these caricatures that people would buy into. And I didn't want to make it overcomplicated. I mean, he naturally looks like a baddie, you know, and we had a great makeup lady who applied the scars to him just to add extra sort of persona to it. And so he really, I mean, he looks like that, and he's fantastic, you know, and he's, so John really pulled it off, and especially in the suit, you know, he loved the suit, which in fact, I think if I remember correctly, was too big for him. So what you do, you know, so we had to do the classic clamping at the back, you know, to pull it all in and make it look a little bit sort of fitting. But he nailed it, and of course everybody took it so seriously, you know. But they're talking not to Clint Eastwood or another human playing this guy. They're actually talking to a ball, and so, you know. But everybody was super professional, and they just, for them, it was their character, and I think that helped. You know, I mean, it's obvious that they're acting, but you know, to embrace it, I think it helps when you're actually selling your idea.
So the shoot took a day. Obviously, there was a lot of prep beforehand. What about the post-production? So you talked about brushing out hands and stuff like that for the animation. Yeah. How long would you say the production took in total from start to finish?
Well, it took us slightly longer, but probably not for the obvious reason of actually technically doing it. The reason it took longer is that we put it away for quite a while. We were just too busy getting on with other things. And the actual job of painting out the ball was done by Andrich Evans from Brainy Monkey post-production, and probably only took him a couple of days, I think. Okay. He's going to be watching this possibly and going, that's the last time I do anything for you. So that wasn't too bad, because we did actually turn to a more practical approach. So that it was really important that we tried to achieve what we could. And that's why we had this thing like this pushing the ball along, because it meant that the effect was done. And so we shot it on with a bigger size screen, so that we could actually crash in a little bit if the edge just tipped in. So visual effects wise, I would say probably 3 to 4 days worth of solid VFX work, if that, probably. The house that collapses, I mean, that was literally there and then knocked down, and then there would be a little black spot that was animated to represent the fly, which obviously was timed to the moment that the house collapses. So a lot of this stuff was practical. And in fact, there isn't that many visual effects in the film, but overall, though, I would say that took that amount of time. The editing, I worked on the offline, so I did the offline, and then Andrich did the online, and mastered up the film and did the grade. I mean, he's wonderful and he did a lovely job. But I don't recall it taking, sort of days and days and days. So I would imagine that probably from start to finish, a week's worth of work. And even then, I'm probably being a little bit generous. I mean, the film isn't very long, probably I'd say the most time was probably spent, I would imagine, on I think the grade, if anything.
Yeah. Well, it looks great. Yeah, it looks really good.
But that's down to the DOP as well, who shot it beautifully, and that's Gwyn Hemmings, who also had his friend Dan Hunt to op. But they did a really lovely job, and I've worked with Gwyn on a couple of feature films that he's DOP'd. So he's a wonderful, young, talented, super DOP. And a lot of that comes to what they input, what they make, what they do to make it come to life.
Nice. So what's next? What's next for the film, and what's next for you? You mentioned you're working on a feature. But...
Yeah, so next week I deliver a feature film that I've just finished shooting called Creatures. Wow. It's a comedy sci-fi, which is a Jopia Boys production with Roman Barbie, who's a Swiss executive producer and an actor. And so we finished 2 weeks before lockdown, the whole shooting of the whole film. Oh, so wow. it literally, we finished, and we were talking at the time of when China went into lockdown, that maybe what a great stunt it would be. A friend of mine, George, who's in the film, said, won't it be great? We should all go into lockdown now. Think about it. The BBC will be here. They'll be saying, film crew, lockdown, having to live together. And then we thought about the cost. And we went, stupid idea. Yeah. And so we finished that film, and that's literally completed next week. And we've been inundated with distribution. So we're very confident it will be getting a European cinema release if there's any cinemas still open. But we know that it's been really well received. And then we're, all being well, kickstarting the Western called The Long Night, which is, again, another Jopia Boys. We call ourselves the Jopia Boys since it's very much of a family thing, working with Roman, and we're going to be hopefully kickstarting that in just a couple of weeks' time. And that's a feature film. It's a dark, supernatural Western. And it will be, it's going to be very filmic. I want it to be very traditionally Western. I want it to have influences from the likes of Ford and Leone. And it's going to be almost, I suppose, a good way to describe it is it's a bit like Aliens in a Western town, but not aliens, but a spirit. So, but it's going to be playing on a lot of dark, sinister, scary stuff. Definitely. And that's to be shot hopefully in March next year.
Well, that's very exciting to hear that there's a lot going on. As Natalie said, you've got a very clear genre that you're sticking to, which you said you've been inundated for distribution. Yeah. And it helps having a very clear audience, a clear subset. So that's fantastic.
Take us back a little bit onto that distribution, because this is a topic that comes up over and over and over again with the Liftoff Network and filmmakers we talk to on a regular basis. What was your approach to getting this distributor or sales agent behind your piece?
Well, the thing is that we've learned the hard way. Okay, we've made a number of films now, and the first couple of films for us, it was out getting it out there. And you're quite naively, as a film director or a film producer, you want to, if somebody comes over to you and says, we'll have your film, and sure enough, yes, have it. And then you forget, in fact, that you're probably not going to get very much money for it or see anything back.
Exactly.
And we learned that the hard way, and stung pretty badly, to be honest with you, but that's a lesson. And so this time around, we've learned a little bit better about how to manage the project. It's about, there's a lot of information out there, how you can improve your chances about sort of getting your film picked up. But, before you have anything, you have to have a really good plan about the kind of film that you're making.
Absolutely.
There's no point, everybody wants to be wants to make a movie. And that's great. And there's always great opportunities. Even film directors, out there now who are really well known, want to make perhaps not so mainstream movies. But when you make a start, you have to make a movie that you're going to get picked up. So you need to know a little bit about what the market's doing. Horror movies are popular. And of course, movies can be made for very little or a lot of money. But if you hit it right and you try and sort of contact distributors and say to them before you even make the film and say, look, what kind of stuff are people like yourselves looking for? What's happening out there? Try and identify and learn, the temperament of the business. What kind of chances? How can you increase your chances if by knowing what it is they're going to be looking for? Hollywood itself tends to announce the kind of movies that are coming out there. So do your homework and then put a plan together to say, well, look, we know that there's other films like this. We know there's a market for it. Make them perhaps for as little as you can if you're an indie, low budget, micro budget maker, because that way you can convince anybody who invests money into you, or you stand a very good chance of getting that money back. And obviously don't just take the first offer, and be prepared. Have your trailers, get your trailers checked out. Do they sell your movie really, really well? Because believe it or not, trailers do make the deal for you.
Yeah, and posters, we say this, artwork.
And posters,
so
yeah.
important.
Well, it's the pack. It's a little package, your PR package.
It's amazing to hear this because you're hitting on all the notes that we try and say when talking about distribution. And as Nat says, it's a topic that we get asked a lot of questions on all the time. So it's great to hear you reaffirm what we're sort of told as advice as well to pass on. Yeah. So that's great.
I think the number one thing there is know your audience, know your market, know who's picking up the projects. So do your homework.
Yeah,
pays off.
Well, thank you so much for speaking and sharing your ideas, Tony.
Thank you for having me.
Continue to chip in if you've got any thoughts or feelings when we continue speaking with the other films, and we can't wait to see the features.
That
Great. Look out for them.
Really exciting. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I think then.
Yes, let's move on.
Let's go on to Lou. Let's get Lou up. So, Rowan and Tom.
Hello.
Speak to us about Lou. Where did it all begin?
Well, it all began. We were actually students. We were in our second year of university at Salford University. And there were 6 of us. And Tony, you said then that you've been working with people for a very long time. We're kind of the opposite. We just came together as a group and we've got plans to work together in the future. But this was our first project as 6 people together. So we wanted to start with a film that we were all really impassioned by and could put our heads together. So we had a lot of meetings to come up with even just the concept of what the film was. And eventually, I'll let Rowan go on to the actual narrative and where the inspiration for that came from.
Just onto that, I remember we came together, and before we even decided what film we wanted to make, we were just so passionate about making a film together because we've been with other people before. So it's just it was like something we really wanted to do. Was us, or 6 of us, do it. But yeah, it's sort of it was a weird one really because we kind of all got together and were discussing film ideas. And I think Lou was originally pitched as very different, but it kind of came from this idea of an old woman looking through some possessions, and from there coming on to this idea of how dementia affects memories and stuff like that. And it kind of grew from that, and me and Tom worked together, and we both brought inspiration from various different things in our personal lives. My nan is currently going through dementia. She's 90 today, so happy birthday, Nan.
Oh, happy birthday to your nan.
And it was, so I sort of drew some inspiration from that, and Tom, I know you drew some inspiration from your dad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit.
Later on, yeah. Well, I think the inspiration was there from the start, and then me and Rowan turned a very convoluted idea into a screenplay. And essentially, the screenplay was too long at first. It was 30 pages long.
Yeah.
And retrospectively looking at the filmmaking process after that, it's a pretty perfect example of us starting off in like a microcosm of a filmmaking experience, because the film went through so many different versions. Like, it was one film in the screenplay, and then we went to filming, and we filmed basically a completely different film, and then we went into the editing suite and we basically edited a completely different film. So in regards to us starting off filmmaking with this film, it was a really good jump and learning curve. And in terms of the actual film, when I can see it on the screen now, there's a lot. When I look at it now, there's so much that I think, right, we could have done this slightly different. We could have done that slightly different. So there's a lot of change about the film itself. But in terms of the filmmaking experience, there's absolutely nothing I would have changed at all, because I think it's taught me so much.
Yeah, I think that's the way you want it, because especially earlier on in a career, but always, like, it's always going to be such a learning curve. You're always going to take the experiences from it, and I think it's also a really good thing to be able to look at your work and be able to see what you would now do differently.
Yeah.
Because again, obviously, you're going to carry that forwards with your next projects.
Yeah,
definitely. I think me and Tom, we have so many conversations about, like, I wish we did that differently. The whole start of this film, I think it was like, in the first cut, it was like 5 minutes long, just the intro. And we loved it, and we were very passionate about how the film started, but it just was so slow, and it just didn't work off a script. And it worked so much better once we got rid of it. But I think if we went back and redid this script, it would be so much better. The way we wrote this script makes me laugh, because it was like, I wrote a draft, sent it over to Tom. Tom had a look, made some changes, sent back his draft. I looked at it, did another draft, and then we were like, brilliant, let's go make it. And I think if we did it now, we would do so much more planning and character development and just sort of plotting, and just, I'd love to remake this film and just sort of do it how we would do it now, basically.
I mean, why not? You could.
What was your initial budget on this film?
Budget?
Yeah, what did you spend making this film?
We spent just over £1,100, but that we've got to be quite open about that, because we were also students. So the kit that we used, we didn't put any money into that. We were able to book kit out from Salford University.
Yeah.
And we had public liability insurance from them as well. So the money, because we filmed the film, it was filmed half in Stockport in Greater Manchester and half in Scarborough in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So a lot of our expenditure was getting to and fro. And that was something that was really interesting, because, like, Tony, you said you filmed your film in half a day or one day.
A day.
Yeah. And we had a very laborious 4 days in Scarborough, where we went down on early Friday morning. We basically just filmed through to Monday evening when we came back. And that was a really interesting way to approach it, because all of these scenes where it's the young couple, like the one that's on the screen currently, that's all in Scarborough. And talking before about, like, timings and keeping to times, we really had to keep our eyes, like, on both hands on the watch, because you think, right, in 20 seconds we've got to get in the car, get everything in the car, and drive 2 meters. That'd be a bit of a waste of time. 2 minutes down the road to a hotel, because it was so specific, because it was our weekend of filming was like a domino game. If we'd missed one thing, we want to miss the next thing. So it was a really interesting way of filming it.
It's really good, though, that if I could just say that this is your learning ground. I mean, I went through your process where I would put this to one side and just move on to your next production, rather than remaking it.
Yeah.
Because this is where you can make the mistakes. This is where you learn to do things the right or the wrong way. The fact is you just move on to your next experience, and you move on to the one after that.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd remake it anytime soon because I think we've obviously got other stuff that we'd like to do. But I think it is something that like we had a vision, and although we loved this film and we loved making it, there's definitely like I think there's more we could do with it later on at some point, definitely.
How did you find working with the actors? So obviously you've got the older actors and you've got the younger. Did you find it easier to obviously relate to the younger actors, but did you find it easier to direct the older couple perhaps? How did you find that?
I don't know about you, Rowan, but I think my ultimate joy of this film was working with those 4 actors. They're called Rosemary, Bob, Olivia, and Sam, and they were so brilliant, both in their performance and in the fact that they were just as dedicated to the film as we were. Like Bob and Rosemary here, they arrived it was at my grand's house we filmed. They arrived early in the morning, and they would just go into the conservatory and drink tea and just chat about life while we were setting up, and then they would come and give their brilliant performances and then just go and have another chat. And Sam and Olivia, as I said before, we were rushing around Scarborough, but not for a single second we were like, oh no, like they're getting annoyed or whatever. It was always they were on board with us. They were on the ship, and it really made such a difference to the film, and even more so because they all gave really, really good performances. Like they really encapsulated the characters perfectly.
Yeah.
I think like Rosemary would be there probably about half an hour before we turned up. Like she should be there, like, ready to go. Like let's do it. And the energy all of them brought every day was amazing. Like especially in Scarborough with Sam and Olivia, because as Tom said, there was so much going on. It was just constant, and we like made sure to have breaks, but there was like nowhere near as much as we'd like. And there was just certain things we did, whereas we were so grateful to have them because any other actor might have not been so happy with how quickly we were having to like move around. There's a bit on the tram later on that always comes to mind because for one reason or another, I know Tom, you were in a car because you were something to do with a parking space, and I was with the DOP Noah and my co-director Freddie, and we were just filming on this tram, and we basically had to time it perfectly that we like ran around a corner, got into the tram, and the tram went down the hill because it was sort of like a slope tram, and that whole thing was just so stressful. And Sam and Olivia were so cool, and they just did it so well every time. And I was there like freaking out, like we're gonna miss the tram. But it went so well, and I love that shot just because of that memory along with it, really.
And how did you cast the actors? Where did you find them?
We found them all through Star Now.
Okay.
The amateur website. Yeah. We put out calls for them all, and we got a lot of applications, and obviously responding to more. And then Olivia, actually in particular, she actually moved an audition for a university just to be in the film. That was another one. I was like, yeah, we've cast the right people here. They were all. It was kind of felt because Sam and Olivia didn't actually come for in-person auditions because they were filming in Scarborough, so it would have been quite a trek. So that was done digitally. But Bob and Rosemary, the older couple, they came into our university for auditions. And I remember with Bob, he got off the tram and I was about 50 meters away. And even just from a distance, I was like, yeah, that's him. He doesn't even need to come over here. We'll cast him. Because it just felt really instinctive that just meeting them, and it was like they'd all read the script. They all related to it in their own ways. That was another thing. And it felt like we didn't even have to try and instill the characters into them because they'd already like cognized as the characters and they'd already become them in their own little way.
And we'd worked with Sam before, hadn't we, on a previous film? So we already knew Sam was like a really nice guy, and he was great on the last film we were in. And the last film we did, we worked sort of in a different group, and but so we knew that if we have Sam, then we know we at least got one good actor, and then it turned out we got 4 great actors. So yeah, it was really nice, and the casting experience just in general was great. Like getting Bob and Rosemary in to do like an audition, doing a script read through was so fun because it was just so nice seeing the characters come to life and seeing them bicker even when they weren't in character was great. So yeah, that whole experience was great.
After doing a script read through, you say it was interesting hearing the characters come to life. Did it help you make any changes or help you just reaffirm any decisions?
I think we made quite a lot of changes from that first read through. Just like hearing the dialogue is always such a great thing, because you write it down and you think it sounds great and you're so certain it's right, and then you hear it out loud from the actor and you're like, oh my god, that's horrible, why would they say that? So I would always recommend to do that, even if it's not with the actor. Just read it out loud with someone, because it makes the world a difference. I know me and Tom worked together on the script, obviously, and it was at times just great having that second person there, because I'll send something over to Tom and Tom would be like, no, and get rid of it. And it was just nice to have that, because at times it's quite lonely writing a script. So collaborating and working with people and just doing loads of stuff like that is always great, I think.
Sorry, I'll just butt in here. I'm looking at the screen, the live stream, and I can see one shot. This is the final shot of the film. And I think that's a really good thing for us to just pick up quickly, because this ending is by far the best ending that we had through all our different versions of the film. And it came to us by a completely happy accident, because the ending was completely different in the past. But me and Rowan were in the editing suite. And as it usually happened with our luck, Adobe Premiere Pro just glitched a little bit, and it deleted a section of the clip, and it just pushed the audio to the left, and it started playing it. And this voiceover that one of the characters gives played over the top of this other shot. And me and Rowan, I remember we just sat there and signed through all of it, and then we looked at each other like, you know what? I think it's just done the hard work for us there, Rowan.
And we messaged the rest of the crew, like, we've just done this by accident. We don't care what you think, we're doing it. We love it.
Yeah, it was a good time for it to happen as well, because we were kind of staring at a brick wall. We knew something was needed changing with the ending to like really hit that final emotional beat, but we just weren't sure exactly what it was. So we were just, I guess sometimes if you're at a brick wall, just stare at the brick wall and maybe something will fall out the sky and hit you, and you'll be like, oh yeah, there's a solution.
From the filmmaking gods.
So, just to round up then, are you both still at university or have you graduated now?
No, we just graduated during the lockdown. So we finished our final assessment at home, which is bizarre for a filmmaking degree. So you can't really do a great deal of filmmaking when you're locked down.
Yeah, of course. So then what's next? What's on the horizon for you both?
Well, we've spent... Sorry, Rowan, if you want to say anything, button, just tell me to shut up, Rowan. We spent a lot of time through the lockdown. The six of us who made Lou, we've been talking a lot and planning a lot. And we've started our own little company called City Projections. Amazing. And we've got a lot of different things planned. They're still nuggets kind of at the moment, and we're just expanding them out. And one thing we've done is tried our best to give ourselves the opportunity and the platform to network with as many people as possible. And we've set up a Manchester-based network, which we're going to start pushing quite soon. Because even though right now we're not in a position where we can go out and make films, because like Rowan's in Cornwall, I'm in Stockport, and everybody else is all over the country. So we're just setting the foundations for building into the future.
Yeah, and Manchester's such a great city. I mean, we have a festival in Manchester every year. It takes place in March, when we can host it. And we love it because of the type of people that create films up there. It's slightly different to what you get down in the south, and it's a growing community. So I think you're wise laying those foundations now.
Definitely.
Even so many more film productions are moving up there as well. So
it's a good place to be for anything film and TV related at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have anything else to add, Rowan?
So me and Tom are both working on sort of various different script projects as well, different things that we hope to make in the future if Corona ever goes away. And then we were also, I just want to mention that we were working on our next film at the start of the year called Weird Dad, which Tom was directing, but unfortunately because of COVID, it all sort of went away quite quickly. But I know that Tom, you're probably... too modest to say, but you're also working on a script to try and do that at some point as well, aren't you?
Yeah. We were we're 3 days into a 10-day shooting schedule on the film, and then obviously the world toppled, and it was at the same time as coronavirus happened, we stopped being students, so we didn't have that accessibility to all the kit and the resources of uni, so we didn't really have much options. We just had to kind of sideline it for the time being.
Oh, well, I'm sure things will return to normal once we're all vaccinated, and you'll get back onto that project, I'm sure.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and what an amazing project to have from like your student days and experience.
Let us know how the other projects go. Let us know how the other projects go, and we look forward to meeting you in Manchester.
I was just going to say, we'll have to send you tickets for Manchester Liftoff 2021 and see you there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay, so now moving on to Rise Black Ocean. Camilla and Bernadine, why don't you give us a little introduction to your film?
Do you want to go, Cam, or do you want to... Basically, in terms of concept, in South Africa, as you're aware, we have a lot of emphasis on having Black females realigned in the corporate sphere. And I work and have worked in corporate for quite a bit. So I engaged with, they have a program where they fast track Black females into certain roles, but it's rather inauthentic, some of the programs that are run. So you get a lot of window dressing and it's a little inauthentic. So for me, I found that jarring and irritating. So I wanted to do a documentary where we ask the hard questions about how is this actually being implemented? Is it working? Is it doing what it's supposed to? How is power balance happening in the corporate sector? And obviously female in general, but with us there was a Black emphasis. And so I just put together a series of interview questions and narrative around how we're going to express this questioning, this way of unpacking, and approached some women that are Black females that have worked in corporate, and their journeys and a bit of their expertise and understanding in terms of this context of how are you really being empowered, yes or no. So connected with Cam, who was directing and has an incredibly artistic eye, because I didn't want it to be your basic docu. I wanted it to have like this gritty, beautiful feel. And so working with Cam was amazing. So Cam can tell you a bit more around the actual filming of it. But for me, it was concept, trying to have a message around the authenticity of this, what's really going on in SA corporate with these ladies. So yeah, over to you, Cam.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's quite a different film compared to the other two films in the sense that it's a documentary and it's quite serious, quite serious content, especially with South Africa, the history that we have and the issues that we have around race and gender and patriarchy are, I mean, it's a global issue, but I think our country in particular feels it. And I know for me, it's a topic that I'm really passionate about. Both in my art and in my filmmaking, I think issues related to women and empowerment and equality, and just speaking into these issues that are difficult, but in a sensitive way. And I think in trying as often as possible to do it in a really creative way, for me, is something I'm really passionate about. And so when Bernadine approached me with this, I was quite excited just to find ways of how can one work with the conventions of a talking heads documentary, which is quite standardized, but then try to include also creative elements that speak to the heart of these issues in more of a right-brained way, So you'll see throughout the film, so, I mean, you can see at the moment there's the talking head, but then it's interspersed with moments of quite creative, poetic visuals. So they speak not literally, but more poetically to to the issues that are being dealt with. So the concept of inequality or the concept of fast tracking, or basically trying to unpack visually these quite dense concepts that can be hard to access if you're not in that world, And then overlaid, I mean, you won't hear it because it's obviously muted, but there's excerpts of a poem. So one of the younger women that we interviewed, her name is Vanessa, she, some of the content that we'd asked to bring on the day of shooting was if they had any poems that had really struck them, as young Black women growing up in South Africa, that had really influenced them, like any creative works that had influenced them, that had helped them hold on to their sense of self and their sense of empowerment as young Black women. And one of the women brought along a poem by Maya Angelou, which is very famous. It's called Still I Rise. And so, which really worked so beautifully with the themes that we were engaging with in the film and the concept of what genuine empowerment and genuine power looks like. And so she read it out and we recorded it. And so there's excerpts. The film is divided into 4 different sections. And each section is introduced with a portion of the poem that speaks to the issue that's faced in those 5 minutes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you said Bernadine approached you. Did you previously know each other, or how did you reach out to Camilla?
Basically, I have a human resources management background.
Oh, okay.
And I had been Camilla was doing editing and film with a company called Tomfoolery in Durban. And I had started by doing HR services for them. And I said to them, listen, I'll trade exchange you. I'll give you HR services, you give me film.
Amazing.
And so when I was working with them, I obviously got to engage with Camilla and saw some of the work she was doing with tomfoolery. And because of the artistic element that she brings, I was like, this is the girl that needs to work on this project because she will do it differently. Yeah. And so that was really how we connected.
Great.
Yeah,
it looks beautiful, doesn't it?
It looks absolutely beautiful. When you bring those you're not bringing the headshots to life, but when you're, I don't know how to explain it. It's just really, really beautiful when the people are posing, and then there's something that happens to them. It's really nice.
Because you won't be surprised to hear that, like, a lot of the documentary submissions we receive are just talking heads, or talking heads with like a few infographics to spice it up. But that doesn't really help much. I do think, especially for film festivals showing, you want something that little bit more arty that looks so beautiful and cinematic as well. So it just hits that perfectly.
How long is the documentary?
Pardon?
How long is the documentary? Roughly 14 minutes?
It's about 14 minutes, yeah.
It's perfect length for the film festival circuit as well.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, because I think a lot of them had a 15-minute cutoff, so it actually worked quite well. If I can actually say something to the idea of, having visuals that are a bit more experimental. I think, if anything, Bernadine and I, in projects that we work on in the future, I know, so my background actually is in fine art. Filmmaking has been a very interesting space to slowly traverse into and find expression for my art through film. So I feel very passionate actually about, I love documentary and I love fiction, and I love the idea that there's a space that can transcend in between, that's very experimental, that transcends, that blurs the lines between documentary and fiction. And I think there's something very interesting that can be done in those spaces that actually really, I think it hits people in a different way, because it's not, I mean, look, there's people who are doing it, it's not a new concept, but I think that there's a lot more to be tapped into. So that for me makes me really excited. And I think that's, in the future, that's probably something we'd want to push into more, because talking heads, there's only so much you can do with it,
That's the problem. Yeah.
Can I just ask Camilla something?
Of course.
Oh, sorry. It was just that were you very involved with the editing? Because there is a real harmony, and I'm an editor, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But in this particular, not only is it beautiful, there's lots of great movement going on with the camera, and there's real engagement, and you're drawing me in as a viewer. But the editing itself is really very working harmoniously with the visuals and the tonality, and yet they're quite dramatically different, but it doesn't feel out of place. It really enhances it. Yeah. So it's a real, how involved were you with the editing?
Yeah, I did the whole thing. So edited from start to finish. It was a very small budget and a crew of me and Bernadine and the cameraman. So between the three of us, we did everything. I think because I come from an arts background where I'm not saying that this is right, this is just what feels right for me. I think the mindset of being an artist who I have an idea, I conceptualize it, I put it together, and then you do it from start to finish. And although I do also love the idea of collaborating and working with a team of people, and it's very necessary, particularly when you get, I think, to feature fictions. It's just not possible to do it alone. Film is collaborative by nature. But I think on these kinds of smaller projects, I really love being able to have my hand from the start to the end.
Yeah.
And I love editing as well. I think there's just so much nuance to be brought into the storytelling process in editing.
Yeah. There's a comment here from Tambu, who says, "Well done, Camilla and Bernardine. Thank you for putting South Africa Black women on the map."
She was actually one of the women we interviewed. She was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, she was the one that said that I can only just I can't go out there and change everything. I can just shine the light that I have in the world. I can just shine the light that I have.
Yeah, it's towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
We have characters.
So how is this film doing on the circuit, on the festival circuit?
So I think it's interesting being on the side of the world. I think there's a lot of so on the one hand, Bernardine and I, when we made this, I think I was working for a production company, but it was the last thing I made with them, and it felt in a way my first venture into the real world of trying to figure out actual film as filmmaking and not just commercials or that sort of thing, or digital content. So in a way, there was so much for us to learn about that we were kind of going in blind. We made this film and then we thought it would be amazing to try put it on film festival spaces. And then so we submitted it to a bunch of things, but obviously zero budget, you can't submit it to anything that requires a lot of money. And so there hasn't been a lot of there hasn't been a lot that's come from it in terms of the film festival circuit. Although it's been so exciting for Liftoff to pick it up, it was really encouraging, and it just got us really excited. And I think it's been teaching us a lot. I think there's a lot that we still need to learn about how film festival circuits work, and some of what Tony was saying before about like planning that kind of stuff beforehand. I think we went into this quite humbly, and then kind of are thinking now, what else could we do with it? But if anything, it's taught us a lot about projects to come in the future. So, and the idea of planning for this stuff beforehand rather than afterwards. Bernardine, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think you've nailed it in terms of we just need to understand. We need to understand market. We need to understand process, and then we need to activate. And I think that's something that's going to come. That's what we're going to, start walking in, and do other projects that can create handles with.
And these other projects, would they follow the same message, same story?
Not necessarily. I mean, you could broaden in terms of the South African context, and there's other things in terms of South Africa that one can talk about. I think, well, for me personally, I just like to. I want to create film, whether it's fiction or docu or the mix, where there's something. I just want to get messages out there that are fairly controversial and gritty. So whether it's whether it's just the harder conversations that people battle to have, I want to have them through film, with an entertainment element, with the ability to go through. I just want to do a lot of messaging.
Yeah.
So there'll always be some element or some controversy or some question we're asking, but not necessarily in an interview format.
The reason why I ask is because if you follow the same themes, then you could create an anthology of work, and then you can sell that to distributors as a piece. So it's like a collection of short films, but it's all under the same branding, the same production company.
Especially considering episodic content is what so many of the distribution companies or even agents are after. We've been asked before, like, could this concept that's a feature film, for instance, be split into episodes? That's something that we've had before. Could it be a web series? Could it be a 3-parter doc as opposed to, because obviously that's what these subscription platforms need. Yes,
there's a cool idea. There's definitely something there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you'll both be working together again.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really nice.
for sure.
At the moment, we've got our own separate projects happening, but it would be amazing to do something again in the future.
Definitely.
Nice.
I'm taking Camilla wherever I go.
Perfect. Sounds like a team dream. A dream team. Does anyone have any questions for Camilla and Bernardine?
I do think that it sets up a wonderful prospect of what your next project's going to be, genuinely.
Definitely.
I think that's something that few films do it, with all due respect to all the films that have gone into the lift off, but I haven't seen them all, but I'm just saying that from having seen your film there, it's actually really exciting.
Yeah.
And if you can create that, and I do think your film looked good, guys, too. It's a real achievement, and I'm not saying I know, it's just that I'm talking from a viewer's point of view, that the prospect, it's if you can capture that engagement and that sort of appeal, that you want to know what they're going to deliver next. Wow, that's something that you can't buy, you know.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really encouraging to hear.
Did you say you made that with a crew of 3?
Yeah, it was
That's so good.
very. I mean, so the reality, we did this in Durban. I mean, I don't know if you guys know much about South Africa, but in terms of where film has a bit more money and is actually an industry, you would go to Cape Town predominantly, and then Johannesburg would be your second space, which is more of a commercial space, but there's a lot happening in Johannesburg. And then Durban is the other big city in South Africa where not much happens. And everyone, I mean, it's classically known as the city that all creative, like the most incredible creatives come from Durban, but they don't stay in Durban. And so it's been interesting. I actually come from Joburg and then moved to Durban a few years ago. And it's been interesting to try make things in Durban where there's, minimal budget. There's not a lot of people around. And so you're constantly scrambling, and it kind of becomes the nature of the city. All creatives just know you make do with zero, and you're trying to make something really great with pretty much nothing, which in a way I think really trains you for things to come. And I'm excited for one day when there is budget and really good at spending it wisely. But for now, 3 people.
Nice.
That's
Well,
fantastic.
there you go. Just goes to show what you can do with such a small crew.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your insights. 3 amazing projects with lots of cool things spoken about there. So do stay in touch with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to follow all of your journeys.
Yeah,
so please do stay in
absolutely.
touch.
Yeah.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
us.
No, absolutely.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cool. That was really cool.
It
I
was.
love talking to other people and finding out about their projects.
Absolutely.
So we have the Amsterdam Film Festival preview coming up on Tuesday, and we have a few more roundtables due in October.
So stay tuned.
If you liked what you saw then, do stay tuned, and we'll be posting those when they all go live.
Absolutely. For anyone watching our festivals at the moment, you've got 3 days left of Los Angeles Liftoff Film Festival, and Amsterdam will be launching.
Yes, it will. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.